I'm Drew Holland, 32 years old, and 2 months ago, on Christmas Eve, my mother dropped me and my 5-year-old daughter at a homeless shelter. My daughter Lily clutched her teddy bear and looked up at me. "Mommy, did we do something wrong?" My mother didn't even glance at her. She just rolled down the window of her Mercedes-Benz, looked straight at me and said, "This is where failures belong." Then she drove away into the falling snow, taillights disappearing like she'd never been there at all. But here's what she didn't know. The shelter's director was standing right behind her car, and he recognized her license plate. Before I continue, if you find this story worth hearing, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely want to know what happened next. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Drop a comment and let me know. Now let me take you back 3 weeks before that night, to the day I received the email that changed everything. December 3rd started like any other Monday. Lily was at kindergarten, and I was at my desk at Morrison & Associates, reconciling quarterly reports for a client who sold luxury bathroom fixtures. Glamorous work, I know. My inbox pinged at 2:47 p.m. Subject: Organizational restructuring. Effective immediately, I read it 3 times before the words sank in. Due to end-of-year budget constraints, position eliminated, final paycheck processed. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. 8 years. 8 years of overtime, of staying late, of being the one who caught the decimal errors that would have cost clients thousands. And they couldn't even tell me in person. I drove home on autopilot, pulling into the parking lot of our apartment building, a modest 2-bedroom in a complex that had seen better decades. The hallway always smelled faintly of someone's overcooked cabbage, but it was ours. It was home. Lily had taped paper snowflakes to the window, each one cut with the determined imprecision of a 5-year-old's scissors. Our Christmas tree, a 3-foot artificial one I'd found at Goodwill, sat in the corner, draped in popcorn garland she'd made at school. I sat down at the kitchen table and did what I always did when things fell apart: math. Rent, $1,450, due January 1st. Savings, $2,300. Unemployment benefits, pending, could take weeks. I was calculating how long we could survive on rice and beans when my phone buzzed again. Different sender this time. My landlord. "Ms. Holland, as discussed in previous correspondence, the building has been sold. All tenants must vacate within 30 days. Please confirm receipt." I stared at the screen, then at Lily's snowflakes, then back at the screen. 30 days. We had 30 days, and somewhere in the back of my mind, a thought surfaced unbidden. There's always Grandpa's house. But that thought came with complications I wasn't ready to face. I waited until Lily was asleep before making the call. Some conversations shouldn't have an audience. My mother answered on the 4th ring. "Drew?" Not a question, not a greeting, just my name, flat as pavement. "Hi, Mom, I need to talk to you about something." I explained the situation, the job, the apartment, the timing. I kept my voice steady, professional, like I was presenting quarterly earnings instead of begging for help. The silence on the other end stretched so long I checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. "I'll think about it," she finally said. I closed my eyes. My mother's house, the house she'd moved into after Dad left, the one she'd renovated 3 times with money from her divorce settlement, had 4 bedrooms. 4. She lived there with my sister Brooke, Brooke's husband Tyler, and enough square footage to host a small wedding. "The spare room," I said, "just until I find a new job. A few weeks, maybe a month." I said I'll think about it. Her tone sharpened, then, almost casually, "Have you considered selling Grandpa's house?" My grip tightened on the phone. Grandpa's house. The small craftsman cottage he'd left me when he passed 2 years ago, the only thing I'd ever inherited, the only proof that someone in my family had believed I was worth something. "I can't sell it, Mom. You know that. The will says I can't transfer ownership for 5 years without my written consent as the sole heir," the lawyer explained. "Your grandfather was sentimental." Her voice could have frosted glass. "You're being foolish. That house is just sitting there empty. It's not about... Come to the house tomorrow. We need to discuss options." She hung up before I could respond. Options. The way she said it made my stomach turn. My mother's house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac in Willowbrook Estates, where the lawns were professionally manicured and the HOA sent passive-aggressive letters about mailbox colors. I pulled my 12-year-old Honda into the circular driveway, painfully aware of the oil stain it was probably leaving on the imported pavers. Lily squeezed my hand as we walked to the door. "Mommy, why does Grandma's house smell like a store?" "It's just fancy candles, baby." Brooke opened the door. My younger sister, 28, blonde highlights, cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, looked at me the way you'd look at a stain on white carpet. "Drew?" She leaned down to Lily with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, she's gotten so big. Come in, come in." The foyer alone was larger than my entire living room. A 10-foot Christmas tree dominated the space, professionally decorated in silver and white, with ornaments that matched the Pottery Barn catalog photo they'd been copied from. The air smelled of Joe Malone, pine and eucalyptus, if I remembered correctly, from the one time I'd wandered into their store and fled from the price tags. Tyler sat in the living room, laptop open, jaw tight. My brother-in-law was the kind of man who introduced himself as CEO of a tech startup within 30 seconds of meeting anyone. He nodded at me without looking up, but I caught something in his expression, a flicker of calculation? Interest? Strange. "Drew, darling." My mother descended the curved staircase in a silk wrap dress, champagne flute in hand. At 61, Patricia Holland looked like she'd made a deal with a very expensive dermatologist. "Sit, let's talk." I sat on their $15,000 restoration hardware sectional and felt like a stain they couldn't wait to remove. My mother didn't believe in small talk. She settled into the armchair across from me like a queen taking her throne and got straight to business. "You can stay here temporarily." She paused, letting the word temporarily hang in the air like a threat. "If you agree to transfer Grandpa's house to a family trust." I blinked. "What family trust?" Tyler looked up from his laptop for the first time. "It's simple, really. A legal structure that would allow the family to manage the property collectively. More efficient that way." Brooke leaned forward, her voice coated in artificial sweetness. "Tyler's company needs collateral for a loan. The house is just sitting there, Drew. You're not even using it." I felt Lily shift beside me, confused by the tension she couldn't understand. I placed my hand on her knee. "It's okay, baby," and looked at my mother. "Grandpa left that house to me. Specifically, he wanted me to have it." "Your grandfather was sentimental about you." My mother's lip curled slightly. "He always had a soft spot for underdogs." The word hit like a slap. Underdogs. As if loving me was a character flaw. "The will has a protective clause," I said, keeping my voice level. "No transfer of ownership for 5 years without my explicit written consent." The estate lawyer explained it clearly. Grandpa added that provision specifically to prevent family from helping family?" Brooke interrupted. "That's paranoid." I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw desperation flickering beneath the Botox. Tyler's startup must be in worse shape than I'd thought. "I'm not signing anything." My mother set down her champagne glass with a precise click. "Then I can't help you. Figure it out yourself." As I gathered Lily's coat, I heard Tyler whisper to Brooke behind us, "Give her a week. She'll come crawling back." I held Lily's hand tighter and walked out the door. The next 2 weeks blurred together in a haze of rejection emails and dwindling numbers. I applied to 43 accounting positions. 2 called me back. Both said they'd keep my resume on file. Corporate speak for never contact us again. The problem with job hunting in December is that nobody hires before the holidays. Everyone's running on skeleton crews, trying to close the books on the current year. "Check back in January," they all said, as if January rent would pay itself. My savings bled out. $2,300 became $1,800 after groceries. Then $1,400 after the electric bill. Then $1,100 after I tried to put down a deposit on a new apartment. Denied. Because I couldn't provide employment verification. I called friends, people I'd known since college, coworkers who'd sworn we'd stay in touch. Everyone had an excuse. "We're renovating. My mother-in-law's visiting. Our lease doesn't allow long-term guests." By December 20th, I had $400 left and no legal address after the 31st. The logical answer kept whispering in my ear. Grandpa's house. But the house was 40 miles outside the city, in a rural area with no public transit. I'd need a car to get Lily to school, to get myself to job interviews, and the place needed repairs. The roof leaked, the heating system was temperamental, and the nearest grocery store was a 20-minute drive. It wasn't a solution, it was a trap disguised as shelter. Christmas Eve arrived with freezing rain and one final desperate option. I swallowed what remained of my pride and called my mother. "Please," I said, "just until I find a job. Lily doesn't understand why we have to leave our home." The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. "Fine," my mother said. "I'll pick you up at 6. I should have known better than to feel relieved. The Mercedes pulled up at exactly 6 o'clock. My mother was nothing if not punctual. Lily bounced on her toes beside me, clutching her teddy bear. "Is Grandma taking us to her house? Will there be hot chocolate?" "We'll see, sweetheart." I loaded our suitcase, one suitcase containing everything that mattered, into the trunk. The leather interior smelled of new car and my mother's Chanel No. 5. A vanity plate gleamed in the streetlight. Folland. We drove in silence through streets sparkling with Christmas lights. Lily pressed her nose to the window, counting inflatable Santas. I watched the route, and slowly, a cold knot formed in my stomach. This wasn't the way to Willowbrook Estates. "Mom, where are we going?" She didn't answer. The car turned onto Harbor Street, past shuttered storefronts and a liquor store with bars on its windows. Finally, she pulled to a stop in front of a 3-story brick building. A hand-painted sign above the door read, "New Hope House, Emergency Shelter." "Mom," my voice came out strange. "What is this?" She pressed a button, and the window slid down. Cold air rushed in. "This is where failures belong." She said it without turning around, without looking at Lily, without an ounce of hesitation. "Maybe a few nights here will teach you to make better decisions." "Grandma?" Lily's voice was small. "Did we do something wrong?" My mother didn't answer. She was already gesturing for us to get out. I don't remember opening the door. I don't remember pulling our suitcase from the trunk. I only remember standing on the sidewalk in the freezing rain, holding Lily's hand, watching the taillights disappear around the corner. And then a voice behind me, calm and deep. "That license plate. I know that car." I turned. A man in a navy peacoat stood in the shelter's doorway, watching the street where my mother had vanished. The man stepped forward into the glow of the shelter's porch light. He was somewhere in his late 50s, with silver threading through his close-cropped hair, and the kind of face that suggested he'd seen enough hardship to recognize it in others. "I'm sorry," he said, his eyes moving from me to Lily. "That was difficult to witness. Please come inside. I'm Marcus Whitfield, the director here." The warmth of the building hit us like an embrace. It wasn't fancy. Worn linoleum floors, fluorescent lights, the faint smell of industrial cleaner and vegetable soup. But it was dry, and it was safe, and right then, that was enough. Marcus led us to a small office cluttered with files and children's drawings taped to the walls. He asked gentle questions. Our names, how long we needed to stay, whether we had any immediate medical needs. I answered on autopilot, half my brain still frozen on that sidewalk. "This is where failures belong." "Drew," Marcus's voice pulled me back. "I need to ask you something, and I hope you'll forgive me if it seems forward. The woman who dropped you off, Patricia Holland. What is your relationship to her?" I swallowed hard. "She's my mother." Something shifted in his expression. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Mrs. Holland is a board member of the Hope Harbor Foundation," he said slowly. "It's the nonprofit that partially funds this shelter." He paused. "I'm the founding donor." I stared at him. "I don't understand." "That Mercedes." He nodded toward the window, toward the street where she'd driven away. "I remember when it was purchased, $85,000, charged to the foundation's outreach budget." His jaw tightened. "It was supposed to be a van for transporting the homeless to medical appointments. Somehow it became a personal luxury vehicle." The room seemed to tilt. "I've been waiting for proof," Marcus said quietly. "I think you might have just given it to me." Our room was small, 2 twin beds with metal frames, a nightstand, a window that looked out onto an alley. Someone had placed a tiny artificial Christmas tree in the corner, no taller than Lily, decorated with paper stars. "Mommy?" Lily sat on the edge of her bed, teddy bear clutched to her chest. "Is this our new home?" I knelt beside her, brushing hair from her forehead. "It's temporary, sweetheart, just until Mommy figures some things out." She considered this with the grave seriousness only a 5-year-old can muster. Then she reached into her backpack, the princess one she'd insisted on bringing, and pulled out a folded piece of construction paper. "I made this at school, for you." I unfolded it carefully, crayon lines, wobbly letters, a house for Mommy. In the drawing, a little yellow house sat under a smiling sun. 2 stick figures stood in front of it, one tall, one small, holding hands. My throat closed up. "It's beautiful, baby." "The teacher said to draw what we want Santa to bring." Lily pointed at the yellow house. "I want a house where nobody can make us leave." I pulled her into my arms so she wouldn't see my face, because I couldn't let her see me cry. I'd spent 2 weeks holding myself together with nothing but stubbornness and math, and now, sitting on a shelter bed on Christmas Eve, I finally cracked. I cried silently, face buried in her hair, while Lily patted my back like I'd seen her pat her teddy bear when she pretended it was sad. When she finally fell asleep, I sat watching her breathe. And I made a promise, not out loud, but somewhere deep where promises live. I will never let anyone make you feel worthless. My phone buzzed. A text from Brooke. "You brought this on yourself. Don't contact us again." I turned the phone face down and stared at the paper stars on the tiny tree until morning. Christmas morning in a homeless shelter is quieter than you'd expect. Volunteers came with donated presents for the children. Lily got a coloring book and a stuffed rabbit she immediately named Snowflake. She didn't ask about Grandma's house or hot chocolate. She didn't ask about anything at all. That was worse somehow. Around noon, while Lily colored beside me in the common room, I made the mistake of opening Instagram. Brooke's latest post filled my screen. A professionally staged photo in front of my mother's 10-foot Christmas tree. Patricia in cream cashmere, pearls at her throat. Brooke in a red velvet dress, Tyler's arm around her waist. All 3 beaming like a catalog for wealthy family Christmas trademark. Caption, "Grateful for family. Merry Christmas from the Hollands." I zoomed in, unable to stop myself. 6 stockings hung from the marble fireplace. Patricia, Brooke, Tyler, baby 2026, Brooke was pregnant, and 2 more names I didn't recognize. Dogs, maybe. None of them said Drew. None of them said Lily. The comments made it worse. "Beautiful family. Living the dream. #family goals." And then, from the verified Hope Harbor Foundation account, "Happy holidays to our dedicated board member Patricia Holland. Your generosity inspires us all." I laughed, an ugly sound that made Lily look up from her coloring. "Mommy, what's funny?" "Nothing, baby. Just a silly picture." But nothing about it was funny. My mother had spent Christmas Eve dumping her daughter and granddaughter at a homeless shelter, then spent Christmas morning posing for photos that would make her look like a saint. And the world was applauding. I closed Instagram and watched Lily color her rabbit purple. Snowflake, she'd decided, was a magical rabbit who lived in a castle where nobody could be mean. I wished I could live there too. Marcus found me the next morning, sitting alone in the shelter's small courtyard, watching my breath fog in the cold air. He handed me a cup of coffee, real coffee, not the watery institutional kind, and sat on the bench beside me. "I did some checking," he said, "after you told me your name last night." I wrapped my hands around the cup, saying nothing. Patricia Holland joined the Hope Harbor Foundation's board 3 years ago. Donated $50,000 to get the position. That's the standard buy-in for wealthy donors who want a seat at the table. He paused. Since then, there have been irregularities. The car. That's the most obvious one. But there are others. Expense reports that don't add up. A consulting fee paid to a company that seems to exist only on paper. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. An email from our board secretary, Sandra Davis, sent to me 6 months ago. I didn't act on it then because I didn't have corroboration. He handed it to me. I read it twice, my pulse quickening. "Mr. Whitfield, I'm concerned about the vehicle purchase approved last quarter. Per the invoice, it should be a Ford Transit for outreach. But the registration I processed yesterday is for a Mercedes-Benz E-Class. And it's registered to Mrs. Holland personally, not the foundation. Why didn't you do something? I tried, requested an audit at the next board meeting. 3 other members, all personal friends of your mother, shut it down, said I was being paranoid, that Patricia Holland was a pillar of the community. His voice hardened. But according to our bylaws, as founding donor, I have the right to demand an independent audit if I can present evidence of financial misconduct. He looked at me directly. You saw her drop you here. You can testify to her character, and I have this email. What are you asking me to do? I'm asking if you want to help me stop her. Before I could answer Marcus, my phone rang. Unknown number, but the area code was local. Ms. Holland? This is Jennifer Rowe from the law offices of Baxter & Associates. I'm calling on behalf of the Holland Family Trust. I stepped away from Marcus, heart hammering. I don't know anything about a Holland Family Trust. I see. Well, you'll be receiving certified mail shortly, but I wanted to give you a courtesy call. Her voice was crisp, professional, utterly devoid of warmth. The trust is requesting that you sign over the property at 742 Maple Lane, your grandfather's former residence, to facilitate family estate consolidation. If you comply within 14 days, the trust is prepared to offer you a one-time compensation of $10,000. $10,000 for a house appraised at $380,000. And if I don't sign? A pause. The trust will be forced to explore other legal avenues. Property disputes can be protracted, expensive, stressful for all parties involved, especially those with limited resources. The threat hung in the air like smoke. I'm not signing anything. That's your choice, of course, but Ms. Holland... Her tone softened into something almost pitying. Consider your situation. You're unemployed. You're living in a homeless shelter with a young child. A legal battle would be difficult for you. The trust's offer is more than generous under the circumstances. I hung up without saying goodbye. When I turned around, Marcus was watching me with knowing eyes. They're circling, I said. My mother, my sister? They want my grandfather's house so Tyler can use it as collateral for a loan. They offered me $10,000. For a property worth almost $400,000? They think I'm desperate enough to take it. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, are you? I thought of Lily's drawing, a house where nobody can make us leave. No, I said. I'm angry enough to fight. 2 days later, my sister called. I almost didn't answer. But some part of me, the part that still remembered sharing a bedroom, borrowing each other's clothes, staying up late whispering secrets, made me swipe accept. Drew. Brooke's voice was softer than I expected. Tired. Can we talk? Like, actually talk? I'm listening. Mom's approach was wrong, I know that. Dropping you at that shelter. She let out a breath. That was too far. I waited. But Drew, you have to understand. Tyler's company is... Things are bad. Really bad. He owes $500,000. Investors pulled out. The bank rejected our loan application. Her voice cracked. If he doesn't get this figured out, we lose everything. The house, the cars, our whole life. So you want me to lose everything instead? It's not like that. She was crying now, or close to it. The house is just sitting there, Drew. You're not even living in it. We need collateral. 1 signature and Tyler can secure the loan. You'd get it back eventually. Would I? Silence. Brooke. I kept my voice steady, though my hands were shaking. You and Mom want me to risk my daughter's only inheritance, the only thing I have to give her, to save your husband's failed business, a business he ran into the ground with his own decisions. That's not fair. None of this is fair. I heard her take a breath, and when she spoke again, the softness was gone. Mom said if you don't sign, she'll make sure everyone knows what kind of mother you are, living in a homeless shelter with your child. CPS might be interested in that. The line went dead. I stared at the phone in my hand, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something other than fear or desperation. I felt clarity. Brooke's threat wasn't idle. 2 days later, I found out exactly what other legal avenues meant. Marcus called me into his office, his face grim. You received something today. I wanted you to see it with me present. It was a printout of an email forwarded from the shelter's administrative account. A concerned citizen had filed a report with Child Protective Services, alleging that a woman named Drew Holland was subjecting her minor child to unsafe and unstable living conditions by residing in a homeless shelter. The sender's email address was anonymous, but the signature at the bottom read, "Submitted via Hope Harbor Foundation Community Concern Portal." My mother was using her own charity as a weapon against me. They can't actually take Lily, can they? My voice came out smaller than I intended. No, Marcus's tone was firm. You're in a licensed emergency shelter. You're employed, well, seeking employment. Your child is fed, clothed, enrolled in school. CPS may investigate, but they'll find nothing actionable. He paused. I've already spoken with a social worker I know. She's agreed to expedite the home visit so this doesn't hang over you. 3 days later, a woman named Teresa showed up with a clipboard and kind eyes. She talked to Lily about school. She looked at our room, our belongings, our faces. She checked boxes on a form. You're doing fine, she told me quietly before leaving. Better than fine, given the circumstances. But Ms. Holland? She glanced at the shelter's front door. Whoever filed this report, they're not doing it out of concern for your daughter. The complaint originated from an IP address associated with a nonprofit downtown, Hope Harbor Foundation. The room seemed to narrow around me. My mother wasn't just trying to take my house, she was trying to take my daughter. And suddenly, Marcus's question from days ago echoed in my mind. Do you want to help me stop her? Yes. Yes, I did. Let me pause here for a moment. If you're thinking, this can't be real, this is insane, I understand. I lived it, and I still have trouble believing it. But this is where everything started to change. Before I continue, what do you think I should have done? Signed the papers to keep the peace, or fought back? Let me know in the comments. And if you're not subscribed yet, now's a good time. The morning after the CPS visit, I sat across from Marcus in his office with a legal pad and a plan forming between us. I'm done running, I said. What do we need? Marcus leaned forward, fingers tented. The Foundation's bylaws, Article 7, grant the founding donor the right to request an independent audit when there's documented evidence of financial impropriety. I've had suspicions for years, but Patricia's friends on the board always blocked me. Now I have Sandra's email about the car, and I have you. Me? A witness to her character. Someone who can testify that the woman accepting Philanthropist of the Year awards abandoned her own grandchild at a homeless shelter on Christmas Eve. He paused. But we need more. The email alone might be dismissed as a clerical error. We need the vehicle registration proving the car's in her name, not the Foundation's. That's public record, right? Through the DMV? Correct. But processing takes 5 to 7 business days. He tapped the desk. The Foundation's annual gala is in 4 days. That's where they're presenting Patricia with the Philanthropist of the Year award. 4 days, not enough time. There's another way, Marcus said slowly. Sandra Davis, the board secretary who sent me that original email, she still has access to Foundation records, including the internal documentation for the Mercedes purchase. Would she help? She's been looking for a reason to. Patricia treats her like a servant. I've seen it at board meetings. The question is whether she's willing to risk her job. I thought of Lily, asleep in our tiny room with her paper star tree. I thought of my mother's voice. This is where failures belong. Call her, I said. Let's find out. Marcus picked up the phone. Sandra Davis agreed to meet us at a coffee shop 3 blocks from the Foundation office. She was younger than I expected, mid-40s with nervous hands that kept rearranging her silverware. I can't be seen with you for long, she said, barely touching her latte. Patricia has eyes everywhere. If she finds out I'm talking to you, we understand, Marcus said. We just need to know if you can access the original purchase documentation for the Mercedes. Sandra nodded jerkily. I have it. I kept copies of everything after she made me file those expense reports. I knew something was wrong, but... She glanced at me. You're her daughter? Yes. She talks about you sometimes, at board meetings. Sandra's voice dropped. Not kindly. I absorbed that hit and pushed forward. Can you get us those documents before the gala? That's the problem. Sandra's hands tightened around her cup. Patricia knows someone's been asking questions. She called an emergency board meeting yesterday. They're reorganizing the financial records, which means destroying anything incriminating. Marcus's jaw tightened. She's covering her tracks. There's more. Sandra pulled out her phone, showed us a screen. She filed paperwork yesterday to transfer the Mercedes into the foundation's name, backdated to October. My stomach dropped. Can she do that? The registration office will process it eventually, but Sandra looked at Marcus. The email I sent you 6 months ago? The one documenting the original purchase? That timestamp can't be faked, and I forwarded it from my personal account before she could delete the foundation copies. Marcus exhaled slowly. So we have the email, the original proof. She can backdate all the paperwork she wants, but she can't change what's already in my inbox. Exactly. Sandra stood abruptly, leaving her latte untouched. I have to go. I'm sorry, I can't do more than this. I have a family. You've done enough, I said. Thank you. She was gone before I finished the sentence. The next morning, Sandra called. Her voice was shaking. I can't help anymore. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. What happened? Patricia knows. She knows I've been talking to someone. Sandra's breath came fast, panicked. She called me into her office yesterday, said she'd noticed irregularities in my performance, said if I wanted to keep my position, I needed to remember where my loyalties lie. I closed my eyes. Sandra, I have 2 kids, Drew. I'm a single mom. I can't lose this job. She was crying now. She wins. She always wins. People like her. They have lawyers and connections and money. We don't stand a chance. I understand, I said, and I meant it. I couldn't ask her to sacrifice her family's security for my fight. Thank you for trying. A long pause, then quieter. The email I sent Marcus, it's still in his inbox. Original timestamp, original metadata, and Drew? Her voice steadied slightly. I forwarded him the vehicle registration too, the one from before she started backdating everything. It's all there. The line went dead. I found Marcus in the shelter's kitchen, helping a volunteer unload donated groceries. His expression when he saw my face told me he already suspected. Sandra's out, I said. Patricia threatened her job. He nodded slowly, setting down a can of beans. I figured that might happen. But she confirmed. Everything she sent you is still in your inbox. The email about the purchase, the original registration, all time-stamped before Patricia could doctor anything. Marcus's eyes sharpened. Then we still have our evidence. But no witness. If Sandra won't testify, we don't need her testimony. He smiled, and there was something almost fierce in it. We just need the documents to speak for themselves. And Drew? He pulled out his phone. I've been making calls. 2 other board members have agreed to support an audit motion if we can present the evidence publicly. At the gala. At the gala. The invitation arrived at the shelter the next day. Heavy cream cardstock, embossed lettering, my name written in calligraphy so precise it could only be professional. The Hope Harbor Foundation cordially invites Ms. Drew Holland to our annual winter gala. I read it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Inside was a handwritten note on my mother's personal stationery, monogrammed, of course. Drew, I want to give you one last chance to be part of this family. Come to the gala. Sign the papers. This can all end nicely. Bring Lily. Let her see what she could have. Mother, I showed it to Marcus. His eyebrows rose. She's using the gala as a stage, he said. She wants to pressure you into signing in front of witnesses. Make it seem like a heartwarming family reconciliation. Good PR. A photo op. The bitterness in my voice surprised me. Mother forgives wayward daughter, welcomes her back into the fold. Perfect for the foundation newsletter. She doesn't know we're planning anything. No. I looked at the invitation again, at the elegant script spelling out my name like it belonged there. She thinks I'm beaten, desperate, ready to crawl back and accept whatever scraps she offers. Marcus pulled an identical invitation from his jacket pocket. Founding donors are automatically invited. I've attended every gala since the foundation was established. He paused. She'll expect to see me. She won't expect to see me with you. I thought of my mother on that stage, accepting her award, basking in applause. I thought of her face when the truth came out. She wants a show, I said slowly. Let's give her one. Marcus nodded. The gala is in 2 days. We should prepare. We spent the next 48 hours building our case like accountants preparing for the world's most important audit. Marcus contacted the 2 board members who'd agreed to support us. Richard Okonkwo, a retired judge who'd grown suspicious of Patricia's influence, and Eleanor Whitmore, an elderly widow whose family had donated to the foundation for 3 generations. Both had concerns they'd never felt empowered to voice. If you present evidence of misappropriation publicly, Richard told Marcus over speakerphone, Eleanor and I will second the motion for an audit, but it has to be irrefutable. Patricia has too many allies on that board for anything less. I spent hours organizing our ammunition, Sandra's email documenting the Mercedes purchase under Patricia's personal name. The original vehicle registration, time-stamped before any backdating, highlighted excerpts from the Foundation's bylaws, specifically Article 7, granting founding donors the right to request audits. A timeline of events, from the car purchase to my mother's attempts to pressure me. The night before the gala, Lily watched me lay out the only dress I owned, a simple navy sheath I'd packed in our suitcase, wrinkled but clean. Mommy, are we going to see Grandma? I knelt beside her, smoothing her hair. Yes, baby, we're going to a party. Will Grandma be nice this time? The question broke something in me. My 5-year-old had learned to expect unkindness from her grandmother. That wasn't normal. That wasn't okay. I don't know, I said honestly. But whatever happens, I need you to know something. Grandma's behavior isn't your fault. It was never your fault. And Mommy is going to make sure nobody treats us that way again. Lily considered this with her serious eyes. Then she nodded and handed me her teddy bear. For good luck, she said. I held it like armor. I couldn't sleep. Lily had drifted off hours ago, one hand curled around Snowflake the magical rabbit, breathing softly in the shelter bed beside mine. The paper star Christmas tree cast tiny shadows on the wall, and I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, questioning everything. Am I doing the right thing? My mother was difficult, cold, manipulative, but she was still my mother. The woman who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd made my Halloween costumes when I was small, who'd cried at my high school graduation. Before Dad left, before she became whoever she was now, was I really about to humiliate her in front of everyone she knew? Then I remembered. This is where failures belong. The way she'd said it. Not angry, not emotional, just matter of fact, like she was stating an obvious truth, like I wasn't her daughter but a problem to be disposed of. And Lily's face, her small voice. Grandma, did we do something wrong? No, we didn't. Something shifted inside me. The doubt receded, replaced by something steadier. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I wasn't doing this to hurt my mother. I was doing this because Lily needed to see that people who treat you badly face consequences, that you don't have to accept cruelty just because it comes from family, that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's survival. My mother had spent years teaching me I wasn't good enough, that I was the failure, the black sheep, the daughter who disappointed. And I'd believed her. I'd spent my whole life trying to prove her wrong, but I didn't need her approval anymore. I didn't need anyone's approval. I just needed to tell the truth and let the documents speak. I closed my eyes and finally slept. The morning of the gala, my phone lit up with a cascade of texts from Brooke. I know you're coming tonight. Don't make a scene. Just sign the papers, take the money, and disappear. It's better for everyone, including Lily. I read them while eating breakfast with Lily in the shelter's dining hall, instant oatmeal with brown sugar, her favorite. I didn't respond. Another text arrived. Mom is getting the Philanthropist of the Year award tonight. Don't ruin this for her. She's worked hard for it. I almost laughed. My mother had worked hard by buying her way onto a board and embezzling funds meant for the homeless. But in Brooke's world, that counted as achievement. Then came a final message, and this one made me pause. Tyler filed for divorce yesterday. He says if we can't get the loan, there's no point staying together. He's taking everything he can. I'm losing my home, Drew. My marriage. Everything. If you sign the house over, I might be able to save something. Please. We're sisters. I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me, the part that remembered Brooke at 7, following me around the house, wanting to do everything I did, felt a pang of something like sympathy. She was losing her husband, her security, everything she'd built her identity around. But then I remembered her voice on the phone. Maybe CPS would be interested in that. She'd threatened to take my daughter. "You chose your side," I texted back. And it wasn't mine. I blocked her number and turned off my phone. Lily looked up from her oatmeal. "Mommy, why do you look mad?" "I'm not mad, sweetheart." I smiled and touched her cheek. "I'm ready." The Riverside Country Club glowed like a snow globe as our taxi pulled into the circular drive. Valet attendants in red vests rushed to open doors for guests emerging from Lexuses and Teslas. Through the tall windows, I could see crystal chandeliers blazing above a sea of cocktail dresses and tuxedos. Lily pressed her nose to the car window. "It looks like a castle, Mommy." "It does, doesn't it?" I'd done my best with what we had. My navy dress was wrinkled at the hem, but clean. Lily wore a pink dress we'd found at the shelter's thrift corner. Slightly too big, but she'd twirled in front of the mirror for 10 minutes, delighted. My only jewelry was my grandmother's simple pearl studs, which I'd refused to pawn even at my most desperate. We didn't belong here. That much was obvious from the moment we stepped out of the taxi instead of a town car. But then Marcus appeared at the entrance, impeccable in a charcoal suit, and extended his hand to help me up the stairs. "You look ready," he said quietly. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready for this." "That's the secret." He smiled slightly. "No one ever is." The ballroom took my breath away despite myself. White linen tablecloths, roses in crystal vases, a string quartet playing something elegant in the corner. Above the main stage hung a banner. Hope Harbor Foundation, Annual Gala, celebrating our champions. And there, in the center of that banner, was a photograph of my mother. I spotted her across the room, red sequin gown, hair professionally styled, laughing with a circle of admirers like a queen holding court. She saw me at the same moment. Her smile flickered, just for an instant. Then it returned, brighter than before, and she began moving toward us through the crowd. The game had begun. My mother intercepted us near the silent auction tables where guests were bidding on spa packages and vineyard weekends. "Drew, you came." She air-kissed my cheek without making contact, then looked down at Lily with an expression I couldn't read. "And you brought her. How sweet." "You invited us," I said evenly. "I did. We'll talk soon." She squeezed my arm, hard enough to hurt, and glided away to greet another donor. The ceremony began an hour later. Guests found their seats. The lights dimmed. A video played on the big screen, footage of Hope Harbor's work, interspersed with testimonials from people the foundation had helped. Then the executive director took the stage. "And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Our Philanthropist of the Year award goes to someone who embodies everything Hope Harbor stands for. Her generosity, her dedication, her tireless advocacy for the less fortunate." I watched my mother's face as the praise washed over her. She looked humble, grateful, perfect. "Please welcome to the stage Patricia Holland." The applause was thunderous. My mother rose from her table like a butterfly emerging from a cocoon, walking toward the podium in her red sequins, accepting the crystal trophy with practiced grace. "Thank you," she said into the microphone, voice quavering with rehearsed emotion. "Family is everything to me. I'm so blessed to have my daughters here tonight. Both of them." She looked directly at me. "I believe in second chances. I believe that even those who have lost their way can find their path back. That's what Hope Harbor is all about." The crowd applauded again. Several people turned to look at me with sympathetic smiles. The prodigal daughter, welcomed home. I kept my face neutral. Marcus, seated 2 tables away, caught my eye and nodded almost imperceptibly. "Not yet," the gesture said. "Let her have her moment." The ceremony ended. Dessert was served, and my mother made her move. She approached our table with Tyler and Brooke flanking her, a united front, designer outfits gleaming under the chandeliers. Brooke's eyes were red-rimmed. She'd clearly been crying. Tyler's jaw was tight with barely concealed frustration. "Drew, darling," my mother's voice was loud enough to carry to neighboring tables. "Could we talk privately? Just family." Say what you need to say. Her smile tightened. Very well. She reached into her clutch and produced a document. I have the transfer papers right here. Sign them, and this all ends tonight. I'll write you a check for $20,000, enough to get back on your feet. Start fresh somewhere. 20,000. I kept my voice level. For a house worth nearly 400. It's a generous offer, considering your circumstances. She glanced pointedly around the room. You're unemployed, living in a shelter. Surely you want better for your daughter. Heads were turning now. Conversations paused. I could feel the weight of dozens of eyes. Mom is right. Brooke's voice cracked. Just sign it, Drew. End this. We're family. Tyler leaned closer, lowering his voice but not enough. Think about Lily. What kind of mother drags her child through this? A stable home or a homeless shelter? Seems like an easy choice. The murmurs around us grew louder. I saw judgment on some faces, pity on others. The wealthy guests of Hope Harbor Foundation were watching a family drama unfold, and my mother had positioned herself perfectly, the concerned matriarch trying to help her troubled daughter. Lily tugged my sleeve. Mommy, why is everyone looking at us? I squeezed her hand. Not yet, I thought. Just a moment longer. And then, across the room, I saw Marcus rising from his seat. This was the moment I wanted to run. Everyone was staring. My daughter was confused. My mother was smiling like she'd already won. But sometimes, the moment when you feel most defeated is exactly when everything is about to change. If you want to know what happened next, make sure you're subscribed and the notification bell is on. Because what Marcus said next? Nobody in that room saw it coming. Marcus walked toward us slowly, deliberately, his polished shoes clicking against the ballroom floor. The string quartet had stopped playing. Conversations died mid-sentence. Excuse me, his voice carried without effort, the voice of a man accustomed to boardrooms. Before we continue, I believe there's a matter that requires the board's immediate attention. My mother's smile didn't waver, but her eyes sharpened. Marcus, this is hardly the time for foundation business. On the contrary, Patricia. He stopped beside me, facing her. I think this is exactly the time. He reached into his jacket and produced a folded document. As founding donor of the Hope Harbor Foundation, Article 7 of our bylaws grants me the right to request an independent audit when there is documented evidence of financial irregularities. He paused, letting the words settle over the silent room. I am exercising that right tonight. The murmurs erupted. Guests exchanged glances. At the head table, I saw Richard Okonkwo and Eleanor Whitmore lean forward with sharp attention. This is absurd! My mother's voice rose. What irregularities are you referring to? Marcus unfolded the paper. I have documentation showing that $85,000 of foundation funds were used to purchase a personal vehicle, a Mercedes-Benz E-Class. He held up a second document. Here is the original vehicle registration, dated 8 months ago. It lists the owner as Patricia Holland, not the Hope Harbor Foundation. The room went deathly quiet. My mother's face drained of color, but her voice remained steady. There's been a misunderstanding. That vehicle is for foundation outreach work. The registration says otherwise, Mrs. Holland. Marcus's tone was almost gentle. And emails from foundation staff confirm that the invoice was deliberately misfiled to obscure the purchase. Across the room, I saw Eleanor Whitmore rise to her feet. I second the motion for an independent audit, she said, her voice cutting through the silence like a knife. I stood, every eye in the room swiveled toward me. My navy dress, my borrowed shoes, my 5-year-old daughter holding my hand. I had never looked less like I belonged in this glittering room. And I had never felt more certain of what I needed to say. I have the email correspondence confirming this purchase, I said, my voice steady. Sent by your own board secretary 6 months ago. I pulled the printed email from my purse, the one Sandra had forwarded to Marcus, the one my mother couldn't delete. Mr. Whitfield, I read aloud, I'm concerned about the vehicle purchase approved last quarter. Per the invoice, it should be a Ford Transit for outreach, but the registration I processed yesterday is for a Mercedes-Benz E-Class, and it's registered to Mrs. Holland personally, not the foundation. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone at a nearby table whispered, "Oh my God." Patricia's composure finally cracked. Drew. Her voice shook. How could you do this? To your own mother? I'm not doing anything to you, Mom. I folded the email carefully. I'm just reading what your own staff documented. Tyler started edging toward the exit, but a voice stopped him cold. Aren't you Tyler Mercer? An older gentleman at the next table was staring at him. The one whose company filed for bankruptcy last month? I saw it in the journal. Tyler froze. Brooke let out a small, strangled sound. Richard Okonkwo stood. As a member of this board, I second Mrs. Whitmore's motion. We need a full, independent audit immediately. Third, called another voice from the back. My mother stood alone now, Tyler and Brooke having retreated, the crystal philanthropist trophy still clutched in her manicured hand. The guests who'd applauded her 10 minutes ago were now whispering behind their hands, their expressions ranging from shock to disgust. The documents had spoken. I wasn't finished. There's one more thing the board should know, I said, and my voice didn't waver. About why Mrs. Holland is so interested in charitable giving lately. The room, already silent, seemed to hold its breath. My grandfather, Patricia's father, passed away 2 years ago. He left me his house in his will. A small cottage, nothing fancy, worth about $380,000. He included a clause specifically stating that the property couldn't be transferred for 5 years without my explicit written consent. I paused, letting that sink in. For the past month, my mother has been trying to force me to sign that house over to her. Not for charity, not for the foundation, for her son-in-law's failing business. I glanced at Tyler, who was trying to disappear into the wallpaper. She offered me $10,000. When I refused, she dropped me and my 5-year-old daughter at a homeless shelter on Christmas Eve. The gasps were audible now. Several people turned to stare at my mother with open horror. She told me, in front of my child, that the shelter was where failures belong. Eleanor Whitmore pressed her hand to her chest. Patricia, is this true? My mother's mouth opened, but nothing came out. For perhaps the first time in her life, she had no script, no carefully prepared response. Brooke started crying openly. Mom, say something. I was trying to help her. Patricia's voice came out strangled. She was making bad decisions. Someone had to show her. Show her what? Marcus interrupted quietly. That her mother would abandon her rather than lose control? The silence that followed was devastating. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't screamed or accused. I'd simply told the truth, and the truth had done the rest. In the chaos of murmuring guests and my mother's crumbling composure, no one noticed Lily let go of my hand. She walked toward Patricia, small steps in her thrift store pink dress, her stuffed rabbit snowflake tucked under one arm. The crowd parted around her like water around a stone. My mother looked down at her granddaughter, and for just a moment, something flickered across her face. Something almost human. Grandma? Lily's voice was clear and high, carrying across the silent ballroom. Why did you leave us at that place on Christmas? It was really cold, and Mommy was crying. The room stopped breathing. I watched my mother's face as she struggled to answer, watched her search for the polished words, the careful spin, the way to make this palatable. But there was no spin for this, no way to explain away the simplicity of a child's question. Why did you leave us? It was cold. Patricia's mouth opened, closed. Her hand, the one holding the crystal trophy, was trembling. She started. Lily, darling, it's complicated. Adults sometimes. Mrs. Davis at the shelter gave me hot chocolate, Lily continued, oblivious to the adult drama swirling around her. And she said Mommy was brave. She said being brave means doing hard things even when you're scared. She looked up at Patricia with guileless eyes. Are you scared, Grandma? Is that why you were mean? Eleanor Whitmore made a sound that was half gasp, half sob. Several other guests wiped their eyes, and my mother, my perfectly composed, always in control mother, had no answer. Marcus stepped forward gently. I think we've heard enough for tonight. He was right. The question of a 5-year-old had accomplished what documents and accusations could not. It had stripped away every defense and left the truth naked in the chandelier light. What happened next unfolded with the swift precision of a structure collapsing. Richard Okonkwo called for an emergency vote. Within 15 minutes, the board had unanimously agreed to suspend Patricia Holland from her position, effective immediately, pending the results of an independent audit. Eleanor Whitmore stood at her table and announced, in a voice that trembled with emotion, that she was withdrawing her family's annual $50,000 donation until the foundation can demonstrate it has restored integrity to its leadership. Other donors followed. By the time the gala officially ended, nearly $200,000 in pledged contributions had been rescinded. The board's legal counsel approached my mother with grim formality. "Mrs. Holland, you'll need to provide documentation for the vehicle purchase within 7 days. If the audit confirms misappropriation of foundation funds, you'll be required to reimburse $85,000. Additionally, criminal referral to the district attorney's office remains at the board's discretion." My mother stood frozen, the crystal trophy still in her hand, as guests filed past without meeting her eyes. Tyler had already vanished. I later learned he'd called an Uber while I was speaking and hadn't looked back. Brooke sat alone at their table, mascara running down her cheeks, abandoned by everyone. Before I left, I walked past my mother one last time. "Drew," her voice was hoarse. "How could you?" I stopped, looked at her, really looked, maybe for the first time since I was a child. "I didn't do this to you, Mom. You did this to yourself. I just told the truth." I took Lily's hand. "Goodbye, Patricia." The use of her first name hit her like a physical blow. I saw it in her flinch, in the way her hand tightened on that meaningless trophy. We walked out into the cold night air, and I didn't look back.